Unit 4, Nerves and Senses. The nervous system lets us interact with the world around us. The nervous system is made up of the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Let's talk about the central nervous system. The central nervous system is the brain and the spinal cord. The brain has three parts. The cerebrum, which is the biggest part. The cerebrum receives information from sense organs. Here is the cerebrum. The cerebellum is at the back of the brain. It keeps balance and posture. The brainstem connects the brain to the spinal column. The brainstem controls respiration and circulation. Involuntary movement. Also in the central nervous system is the spinal cord. Inside the spinal column, it transmits information between the brain and the peripheral nervous system. It controls involuntary movement called reflexes. So the central nervous system is the brain and the spinal cord. The brain and the spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system. Nerves are long fibers of nerve cells called neurons. Nerves send tiny electrical signals between the central nervous system and other parts of the body, like tissues and organs. There are three types of nerves: sensory nerves, signals from tissues and organs to the central nervous system; motor nerves, signals from central nervous system to muscles; and mixed nerves, which transmit signals in both directions, to and from the central nervous system. Let's talk about nerve cells. Nerve cells transmit and receive information as tiny electrical signals called nerve impulses. Nerve cells are also called neurons. Here is a nerve cell. Nerve cells have two main parts, the dendrites and the axon. The dendrites here receive nerve impulses from the axons of other nerve cells. The axon transmits nerve impulses to dendrites of other cells. The axon also transmits impulses to muscles. How the nervous system works. The central nervous system receives and interprets nerve impulses from the body. Then it reacts by sending nerve impulses back to the body. Nerve impulses from the body go to the central nervous system, which sends nerve impulses back to the body. Voluntary movements, which are not automatic, which we control, go from the brain to the muscles. 1. Sense organs detect information about our environment. For example, the alarm clock rings before school. 2. Sensory nerves send information to the central nervous system. Time to get up. And motor nerves send nerve impulses from the brain to the muscles. And we get up, we move, because muscles move. Involuntary movements are automatic. Quick actions, called reflexes, go from the spinal cord to the muscles. For example, sense organs detect information about our environment. Then sensory nerves send information to the spinal cord, involuntary spinal cord. And motor nerves send information from the spinal cord to our muscles, and we move, like when we breathe or when our heart beats. Let's talk about sight. Our sense of sight uses our eyes to see things and use information, like shape, color, and location. Here's the human eye. Let's learn about some different parts of the human eye. The cornea. Here's the cornea. The cornea is a transparent layer of cells that covers and protects the iris and pupil. And here is the iris. The iris. The iris is the colored part of the eye. It's made of muscle fibers to open and close pupil. And the retina, in the back here, the purple thing, The retina is a thin layer of optic cells that detects light and color. These optic cells send information to the optic nerve and the pupil. The pupil is a small hole that lets light in. Here's an example of how the eye works. Here's an actual image or light. The actual image goes into the eye through the pupil. Then it passes through the lens. And then the lens projects an upside down image onto the retina. The optic cells in the retina detect light and colors. For example, the tree is green and brown. Then they send nerve impulses to the optic nerve here at back of the eye. The optic nerve transmits the nerve impulses to the brain. Finally, the brain interprets the impulses and it turns the image the right way again. So here's the final image. Let's talk about the sense of smell and taste. First, the sense of smell. The sense of smell lets you smell things with your nose. Our nose detects thousands of smells in the air. One, the process of smell works like this. One, smells are clouds of tiny particles in the air, which go through the nasal passages. So here are the nasal passages. Two, special olfactory cells, here they are, olfactory cells, detect the particles and send the nerve impulses to the olfactory nerve. The olfactory nerve, this thing here, this line, transmits the nerve impulses to the brain. And finally, the brain interprets the information. Our sense of taste lets us taste things with our tongue. The tongue has thousands of tiny bumps called taste buds. Taste buds mix with saliva and produce nerve impulses. And then the gustatory nerves transmit nerve impulses to the brain, and the brain interprets the information. Let's talk about hearing. Our sense of hearing lets us hear things with our ear. Ears detect sounds around us and help us keep balance. Here in the ear, the important parts to remember are the outer ear that has the ear canal and the eardrum. The ear canal and the eardrum. The middle ear, which has the osseols. The osseols are tiny bones called the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. Okay? The hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. And then the inner ear includes the semicircular canals, which help you to keep your balance, and the cochlea, okay? The cochlea. Here's the cochlea. How does hearing work? One, sound waves go through the ear canal and hit the eardrum. Two, the eardrum vibrates. The osseols here vibrate and transmit vibrations to the cochlea. The cochlea detects vibrations and produces nerve impulses. The auditory nerve, here at the end, transmits impulses to the brain, and the brain interprets the information. Finally, let's talk about touch. Our sense of touch lets us touch and feel things with skin. The skin can detect pressure, temperature, hot and cold, and different textures, soft, rough, smooth. Our skin has two layers, the epidermis and the dermis. How does touch work? Many nerve endings in the dermis, here are the nerves, detect info about things that touch the skin. The nerve endings in the dermis produce nerve impulses. Sensory nerves transmit impulses to the brain. Finally, the brain interprets this information. Study hard and good luck on your test on Tuesday.